always sends a Moses to deliver them. One can also note here that every Exodus that I have identified in Scripture is the equivalent of a business transaction. Every Exodus. I'll give you one real quickly. When Christ died on the cross, when Christ decided that I'm going to temporarily step out of the eternity of time and step into the chronos of time to experience the humanity of God's creation, it was a transaction. When he decided that he was going to lay down his life, it was a transaction. He was laying down the humanity of his life, or the consciousness of his godness, so that you could experience and be restored to the place that you were created to be. It was a transaction. Sometimes it's a transaction that sometimes we take for granted, particularly those who are accustomed to the traditionalism of attending church regularly. We take it for granted. How do we take it for granted? First of all, you're dealing with a God. Remember, we're talking about I am money, I am. We're going to also talk about the image that we are created in. Okay, if we're created in the image of God, as I give you this information, I need you to synergize it and synchronize it with the image God is, the characteristics of God, but also the image and the characteristics that you have as well. So in essence, when I'm talking about some of the correct characteristics of God, I'm also talking about the characteristics of you. When I'm talking about the characteristics of Christ, I'm also talking about the characteristics in you. So the transaction was amazing, because you take a God who's all powerful and then you insert him into a powerless human structure. Would you be willing to pay that price? You take a God who is all-knowing and then you limit his all-knowingness to the boundaries of what we call a human mind. Then, of course, he's everywhere. And then he has to be constrained here in this time. We're talking about a God who is not just everywhere in this time, but he's everywhere in all times at the same time. Look at somebody and say, I am money, I am. So let's talk about the solution. We've defined the problem briefly. Most of us can relate to the problem. Charles Hannell, the father of personal development, bishop, suggests that God established, and now mankind understands that for every result is an adequate and definite cause. So that when a given result or solution is desired, then mankind seeks a condition by which alone thus the result would be attained. That means once we understand what we want to obtain in life, there's certain conditions, there's certain things, there's certain disciplines, there's certain practices. We develop a lifestyle conducive to what we want to become. The solutions, God gives Moses and his people a plan of intentional faith. Faith without works is dead. Authentic or intentional faith instantaneously or it automatically can presume that that faith includes action. It includes action. To separate the two, I propose to you, is not truly authentic faith. Because if I talk about faith and I say I believe I have faith, but I'm never doing anything to put the faith in action, is that authentic faith? No. So the solutions to this Egypt spirit that's encompassing the church, encompassing our communities, encompassing the United States, how do we break the barrier? We're entering into this prophetic economic revival. So we first have to establish the I am image. We are created in the image and likeness of God. We possess his DNA, his mind, and his characteristics. Genesis 1:26 says, let us make man in our image, after our likeness. So when I connect that to Exodus, and he says, I am that I am, what is that thing that you need right now. When he showed up to the Israelites, he was their deliverer. I am the deliverer, I am. During this economic season, I call it a season of opportunity. Most people, because of the media, call it a recession, depending on who's defining it. Warren Buffett defines it one way. The chairman of the Federal Reserve defines it the other way. But at the end of the day, you're seeing increase in gas prices. You're seeing increase in food. You're seeing I'm behind in my payments. That's what you're seeing. So in this season, the God, your creator, is the resources or the money that you need. Now let me connect this for you. Let me define what money is. Let me define what money is. Money is essentially currency. The $50 bill, the $20 bill, the $100 bill that you're carrying right now, that's really not money. That's not money. See, in the 21st century, money is information. That's why you have multi-billion-dollar companies that are surviving and multi-billion-dollar companies that are dying because one company has some information and the other company does not have the same information. Even today, the dollars, whether it's American dollars, whether it's the euro, whether it's the pound, the shekel, whatever it is not backed up by a gold standard or a platinum standard or a silver standard. You know what? It's backed up by a thought. When the chairman of the Federal Reserve gets up on a Monday morning and says, I need to infuse $100 billion into the economy, they don't go to Africa and get gold and put it in Fort Knox. You know what he does? He thinks about it, he makes a phone call, and he prints the money. Your money that you're holding in your hand is not the real currency. So what is the real money? If I am money, then you are the money. People are the money. Relationships are the resources that you need to connect and activate your divine purpose on this planet. Sometimes when you have influence, you don't need a Visa card. You don't need an American Express black card, even though I'll keep mine anyway. Continuing on the characteristics of God. We have the mind of God. Say it. We have the mind of God. Corinthians 2:16, for who have known the mind of the Lord, that he may instruct him. But we have the mind of Christ. Because God is omnipresent, meaning he exists in all times. I said this, at the same time he is omniscient, ultimately knowing all things in all times, enforcing his ability to be omnipotent, all-powerful everywhere at the same time. I'm talking about you. Whose image were you created in? Whose mindset are you adopting? Are you adopting the mindset of CNN and Bloomberg? Are you adopting the mind of Christ? God is a creator. Say, I am a creator. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. This qualifies him as the greatest entrepreneur in the universe. That's what entrepreneurs are. We create, we innovate, we develop solutions. We find a weakness in some model and we find a correction to it. That's how you become a millionaire in the 21st century. It's not just imitating what somebody else is doing. Think about it. If you really never saw a new nail salon open, would it really matter? If you never saw another barbershop open, would it really matter? But what about coming up with some witty invention or some witty technology that can complement what you already know exists? Finding the weakness in something and being able to solve it. That's what Christ did. That's what God the Father did. They saw a weakness. There was a flaw in the natural progression of humanity. Man was damned because of the fall. So they had to create a process